So today we're going to talk about why dating an avoidant man who's over 40 years old is dangerous, and it might even piss you off. So sit back, grab a drink, and listen up. So you might have noticed that lately, if you've been following my channel, I've been actually spending quite a bit of time talking about avoidant men. Now, this actually directly relates to love attachment style. And if you're not familiar with love attachment style, write those words down. Google it and do your own research on love attachment style. There's two primary love attachment styles. There's secure and insecure, and I'll get into those for a moment. But let me tell you why I'm sharing this topic today, because I was thinking about an interesting fact. And what I'm about to share is purely my conjecture. It's purely my hypothesis. There's no proof of what I'm about to share, at least my opinions, if you will. But I think you might find them rather interesting. But what is interesting is that women initiate roughly 75% of divorces. Think about that. Women initiate 75% of divorces. Now, let's exclude those that there's true, genuine abuse in their relationship. I suspect the primary reason, well, they say money is one of the primary reasons for divorce, and that certainly can play a part of it. The other primary reason for divorce is a lack of intimacy, emotional connection. In some cases, it's also physical connection as well, because when the emotional connection breaks down, the physical connection breaks down. So why do women initiate those divorces? Well, I speculate, and by the way, let me just say this. To the counterpart, that man who's not married, who is single, that's over 40, most likely 75% of those men who are single over 45 years old are divorced, okay? And probably the other 25% represents widowed or widowers or non-married men. But 75% of men and women who are in the dating marketplace over 45 years old are divorced. And what's fascinating about divorced men, this is why we're talking about the over 40 category, is that a significant percentage of them men are non-committal. And I think this directly relates to their love attachment style. So let's come back to the woman who sought the divorce. What's the primary reason? Because the relationship lacked, most likely from her perspective, emotional intimacy. And I would venture to say, and again, this is purely my speculation, 75% of the time, it's because these men are avoidant attachment style. If you haven't read the book Wired for Love by Dr. Stan Tatkin, and by the way, all the books I recommend are listed below, I highly recommend reading this book to understand secure, or how to build a secure relationship, okay? But to understand the avoidant man, I think it goes hand in hand that avoidant men oftentimes are emotionally unavailable, they're emotionally stifled. Avoidants are usually categorized in fearful avoidant and dismissive avoidant. And the counterpart to that is anxious, okay? Anxious oftentimes demonstrates itself in neediness, particularly in the need of receiving validation. And the irony is the avoidant person desperately wants validation, but they have a hard time receiving validation. And more importantly, they have an even harder time giving validation to their partner. So there's this interesting dance going on. Avoidant men tend to choose. So and this is purely a speculation on my part, I say roughly 75% of the population of avoidants are men, 25% are women, and conversely, 75% of anxious are women and 25% are men. This is just purely a hypothesis on my part. Why is this so critically important? Because chances are, if you are with an avoidant man, then there's a good chance you're an anxious person. And the anxious person, on some deep subconscious level, desperately wants to be validated. They want to be loved, and they want to hear the verbal expression of love. And the problem is they have a propensity of choosing avoidant men who don't give them the love, and that's hence why this is dangerous, in the sense that your needs most likely won't be met. Now, in a moment, I'm going to share what's really going to piss you off, but stick with me on this conversation for a little bit. It's interesting. The reason why a person has an insecure attachment style usually stems from traumas or multiple traumas from childhood. In many cases, fearful and dismissive avoidants experience rather unhealthy experiences of love, inconsistent experience of love. They experienced abandonment. They experienced all kinds of micro traumas in childhood that makes them scared to genuinely love, to receive love. And so the minute they get a little bit, and by the way, the minute they get a little bit of love from somebody, they reject it. It feels overwhelming to them. In many cases, they have a hard time receiving. And in that same capacity, they have a hard time. And this is usually from a verbal expressiveness. I believe avoidance often, if you're not familiar with 5 love languages, I believe oftentimes the way avoidance give and receive love is through acts of service. Acts of service. It can also be through physical intimacy. But I would venture to say that that's, and again, this is purely a conjecture on my part, because within 5 love, by the way, this is an outstanding book, but I believe it's become outdated. I want everyone, someone write this in the chat box, but write down, Google the 7 love languages. And I invite you to even do a search through my videos. I did a video called the 9 love languages. One of the additional components that's offered in the 7 love languages is our need for emotional connection and need for emotional expression. So I believe avoidants oftentimes give love through acts of service. It's because it's easier for them to give than to verbalize what they need. And it's hard because typically the anxious person probably wants to receive the words, their words of affirmation. They're needing that emotional connection. In fact, women predominantly want, if they are asking for divorce at such high rates because of a lack of emotional intimacy, I think if you're in the dating marketplace today, then it would be absolutely a necessity to do an evaluation of this person before you ever get too emotionally attached to a person, maybe before you even have physical intimacy with someone. I highly recommend reading the book 8 Dates by Doctors John and Julie Gottman, before the penis ever goes inside the vagina, to understand this. And by the way, even having an understanding doesn't preclude you from experiencing, if you're an anxious person, we are naturally gravitated towards the avoidant person. It's on a subconscious level, we can't help ourselves. Now, do these books help you become secure? I think just like overcoming a fear. Folks, I was so afraid to shoot videos 15 years ago. I was so afraid to shoot videos. And then I just started to shoot very short videos. And little by little, I built a muscle. I think just in the same venue, to become a secure, you have to build it by experiencing what you don't want over and over and over and over and over and over again until you've actually learned to heal it. That's just my speculation. So if you find yourself with an avoidant, you're going to be most likely frustrated because, well, let me rewind that for a second. You see, the way I've observed most relationships in the dating marketplace, it's very transactional, very, very, very transactional. It's always a tit for tat. You give, it's a give and receive type of it's oftentimes a codependent dynamic, but it's usually based on the practical needs within a relationship, the physical needs in the relationship, and certainly the need for fun and play. And what oftentimes couples do in the early stages of dating is they hyper focus on the fun and play to build some level of trust, which is actually a false sense of trust, but it's transactional because what a healthy relationship needs is a true emotional connection. But I'm going to take it a step further. And what a healthy relationship needs is a connection to something beyond themselves, something spiritual, something divine, something beyond themselves, I believe is a necessity. But if you find yourself in a transactional relationship, you can be in a transactional relationship with avoidant man. Transactional oftentimes is throughout history has been men have the resources and they provide the home and the woman is the home keeper. But in the over 40 category, this is a whole different ballgame for a variety of different reasons. The reason why I understand this because the predominant population is divorced. And remember I said early on that childhood wounds causes someone to be anxious or avoidant. Well, guess what? The trauma of divorce can directly affect someone's well-being in their attachment style. Not enough studies have been done in this area in the divorce demographic when it comes to love attachment style. In fact, I would say very little studies have done other than questionnaires that people fill out. But here's the problem with questionnaires for study purposes, these questionnaires. People answer. Humans are notorious for gaslighting themselves. We have this egoic sense of self, and so they answer the questions the way they think they are versus how they actually are. Very few human beings are truly self-aware. And self-aware, the best analogy I can give for self-aware for the way I've interpreted is that we are all the actors in our lives, but self-awareness is being the audience member, not yourself. It's being an audience member witnessing this person's life. I want you to imagine this. Do you remember the movie The Truman Show? Do you remember that? He was under a microscope being filmed and followed by everyone on the planet. Imagine your life was The Truman Show. How would you view your life as the outsider looking in? To me, that is self-awareness, to actually look at your actions, the way you operate, the way you think, the way you handle emotions from the outsider perspective. I just invite you to put that hat on and try that out on for size. So, avoidant men are dangerous because they oftentimes will not fill your needs of emotional connection. But let me tell you why dating an avoidant will piss you off, especially if you're an anxious person, okay? See, what's interesting is the avoidant and anxious attachment style individuals are thirsty for validation, are thirsty for love. The problem is the anxious person who is with the avoidant person doesn't verbally express emotions, or rarely verbally expresses emotions, excuse me. And they don't express how they feel about you. Oftentimes it's very much critical the way they view you, and they dismiss you in your feelings. The fearful avoidant will avoid the feelings altogether, and the dismissive avoidant will dismiss your feelings, okay? The avoidant, on the other hand, is unable to receive your validation, to receive your love. And so then it reaches a threshold where it gets overwhelming, and then they'll cause agitation in the relationship to push you away. That's my Cliff Note version of assessing these. But let me tell you why this is going to piss you off. I believe avoidants heal while they're in a relationship. It's actually all that love, all that care you give to that avoidant person, all of that validation is actually helping rewire their brain to help them feel loved. And they oftentimes end the relationship. Avoidants end the relationship because they'd rather be a bright, shiny penny to someone new. Okay? This is why you oftentimes see men who are avoidants immediately attach themselves to someone else, but you've helped heal that person in the relationship. And this is what's going to piss you off even more. Do you know when the healing happens for you? It's the misery and the pain you experience when that person ends the relationship and you feel abandoned. That's right. all of the emotional trauma that happens when an avoidant ends a relationship with an anxious person, that anxious person feels such tremendous trauma, pain, shame, guilt. And that's the opportunity to heal in that space, is to suffer through the pain. And through the misery, we can actually learn to surrender and grow from the pain. We can look at our actions. We can look at our choices. If someone chooses to do the healing work after it ends. I know this fucking sucks. It sucks that they get to heal in the relationship, and those that are anxious person have to heal after the relationship ends. Now, does that mean that the avoidant actually is healed? Maybe yes, maybe no, but certainly they are better off because you gave so much tremendous love to that avoidant man that by osmosis, he can heal through that experience. But unfortunately, you as the anxious person it's good. The pain of this ending of the treasure relationship that's where the opportunity is for one to heal. And it really fucking sucks. And wouldn't that piss you off? So what's the antidote to all this? Listen, I've been beating the drum for years that everyone do the Hoffman process. This is a deep dive into healing childhood wounds and adult traumas that cause us to make poor choices. In addition, we are swimming in a sea of dysfunctionality in the dating marketplace in the over 40 category. And let me be clear, chemistry doesn't equal relationship success. We have been so fucking indoctrinated in believing that chemistry equals relationship success, that what happens is we get attached or bond to the wrong person. And it makes it so difficult once you bond with a person to be objective. This is why I'm such a big proponent of doing your due diligence, of vetting a person. And if you need some support with that, here's a link to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's links below to work with me. My whole coaching practice is designed to help you learn learn discernment through your intuition. Oh my God. And I have so many, I can't tell you how many clients do, the minute they make the investment in this program, they meet better quality, secure men, or at least men that aren't at the spectrum, the far end of the spectrum of anxious or avoidant. They are close to being secure. I have a client I was speaking to today. I'm like, do you realize this guy really likes you? Like, she was like in shock. I'm like, no, this guy really likes you. And this is what happens when you operate from a place of discernment, because you've done the inner work to heal the childhood wounds and certainly those adult traumas that come from our attachment style. And if you haven't read the book Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, I highly recommend reading this book. How do we avoid avoidance? We ask the radically honest questions early on. We lay our cards on the table early on. And more importantly, we establish the rules of engagement before that penis ever goes inside the vagina. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. If it is, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in this, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. You can join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. You can follow me on Instagram. You can get the books I recommend. And don't forget to get my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work. The link below to get my book. All right, those who know my live format, it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, write the word question, then post the question thereafter. Or you can purchase a super sticker super chat, just like this wonderful woman, Wendy, did. She just gave us a $4.50 super sticker. There's a little $ in the chat box. Just hit that little $. That will allow you to purchase a super sticker super chat, and you can post a question in there. All of the monies from the super sticker super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's a picture of him right there. He's my son who passed away over 6 years ago. In his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process Insight Institute, and we offer scholarships to coaching as well. All right, so our goal tonight is $50. I'd appreciate some love. All right. So before I jump in, as we're waiting for questions, I do have a personal share, because in my last video, I mentioned possibly considering a friends with benefits scenario. Now, the reason why I shared that publicly is that this was presented to me. You know, it used to be people had lovers in their lives, you know, it's now just been replaced with the terminology friends with benefits. And it's hard to deny our physical urges to want to connect with someone. And yet this person, we both know that we're not a good fit for one another. But as I reflected upon it, I recognized that I was a bit out of integrity with myself. And what I mean to say is I deeply, deeply hold space for a spectacular woman to enter into my life. I do believe that in these last couple chapters of my life, I'd like to have someone special. And while tempting as it is, and I'm not here to judge anyone who considers it, believe me, I've had several in my lifetime. When I shared that publicly, it's just to say that there's no judgment on what choice you make. There's no judgment if you choose a casual relationship. There's no judgment if you have a hookup. There's no judgment if you end up doing a long distance relationship only to have the guy, you know, bail on you after he had sex. There's no judgment. We shouldn't judge our experiences. We just have to recognize that all of these experiences are preparing us to just become a more whole and aware human being. And so I just want to share publicly that I did not decide to go down that route, at least with this person anyway. But who knows? I could always change my mind tomorrow. But I wanted to be upfront about that. Natalie says really quickly, Jonathan, this shirt isn't flattering you, just being honest. Okay, I appreciate you sharing your perspective. Do you want to know why I wore this shirt today? It is blazing. I don't have air conditioning where I live, and it is just blazing hot. It's one of the reasons why I always have underarm pit stains, is because it's rather hot where I shoot my videos. I have no air conditioning. So today I wanted to wear a Hawaiian shirt in honor of that for fun. But thank you for sharing it. Sally, on the other hand, says, I think this shirt is one of the nicest he's worn. It's lush. Well, thank you so much. Debbie wants to acknowledge, I'm glad you didn't. I couldn't. That has to do with the friends with benefits. I appreciate that. Jade is in the house. Question, how does the anxious attach avoid getting attached too quickly and being okay with the fear, pain, and uncertainty of detaching when red flags show up? I love this question. You know, I've been listening to a song. I'm gonna find it for you. I texted it to a friend of mine. Bear with me a second. The song is called, it's by Doe. Okay, someone write this in the chat box, okay? DOE space PAORO. PAORO. That's who did the song. And the song is called All My Life is a Ceremony. All My Life is a Ceremony. And why I'm sharing this with you is there's some lyrics in the song that says, humility is our tender teacher, and misery helps us learn to surrender. Misery helps us learn to surrender. And why I'm bringing this up, so all of life is a ceremony. I love the lyrics of this song. Misery or pain or suffering or anxiousness is a clue that something needs to be healed within ourselves. Here we go. Jade wrote it properly. All My Life is a Ceremony by Doe Peru. Okay. The idea is through our suffering, we can grow. So remember I said earlier, I said awareness is like the Truman Show. Your life is under a microscope, but somebody is watching you. Awareness is being able to look upon yourself and watch yourself and your actions. And literally, awareness is learning how to coach yourself from that observer space. from that observer space. So coming back to your, how do we, what was your question? Bear with me a second. How to be okay with the fear, pain, uncertainty. It's like exactly what I talked about when I was learning how to shoot videos. We have to go through the pain. We have to practice it. We have to face it every single day. Folks, I'm an anxious attacher. Nobody gets this like, I mean, I get it like nobody's business. It's one of the reasons why I think I can empathize with my clients so much, is because I believe the vast majority of women who come to work with me tend to be anxious. Not always. I mean, I get plenty of avoidance too, but I certainly can empathize with it. And certainly I've been aware, being that my pattern has been to choose women who are most likely avoidant. Of course, I'm not a doctor, so I can't diagnose. I can only speculate. So that's how we face it. Okay. Elizabeth says, long distance and I trust him. He's nerdy, overweight, and in for work. Way to go. Oh, you're describing something else. Jade says, I disagree. Your shirt looks great on you. Thank you so much. By the way, there's nothing wrong with okay, here's a great little, here's the thing. Somebody genuinely shared how they felt about my shirt. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, by the way, for anyone who judged that person, some of you like it, some of you don't. That's a preference. See, we all have preferences. Some men like big butts and they cannot lie, and the other brothers can't deny when a girl walks in with the itty bitty waist and a round thing in your face, you get sprung. Okay, I happen to like athletic builds. I'm more into women who have more of an athletic build. Some men like curvy build. I mean, my point is we all have preferences, okay? But there was nothing wrong with that person sharing their preference. It's how they felt, okay? Now, does it make that person right? You see, that's another way of that's the thing. When we judge as something is right or wrong, that's where ego comes in. And ego sabotages our heart. See, whenever we are in an unhealthy ego, we sabotage our heart. So that person shared a preference that was absolutely okay. And I appreciate many of you that see it another way. But anyway, and I'll show you more of the shirt by tilting the camera down. All right, let's keep going here. Sherry Fleming wants to point out that there's all these men wanting polyamory, non-monogamy. No, thank you to that. By the way, this happens to be quite a bit of the norm, because you know what? We have to examine relationships. You know, it fascinates me that marriage end at a rate, second to third marriages end at a rate of 65 to 75%. And most people in the dating marketplace find themselves either in casual relationships or they're unattached. Relationships are not, see, we have this belief that relationships are supposed to go the distance. Relationships are a container for individual growth, preferably two people growing, emotional growth. But the reality is polyamory and non-monogamy is because they don't want to commit sexually to one person. There's nothing wrong with that. Friends with benefits, nothing wrong with that. Hooking up, nothing wrong. So long as you're in integrity with yourself and preferably the other person's in integrity with you. By the way, if anyone wants to join me live on the hot seat, I just put a link right there as well. Oh, Brown Canetta wants to ask, what is the Hang the DJ episode? Okay, folks, one of my favorite, okay, someone write in the chat box, Black Mirror. I believe it's season 4, season 5. The episode is called Hang the DJ, Hang the DJ. It is a great, cute little story about why everything happens for a reason. I highly recommend watching this show from the observer perspective and looking at all of your relationships have been preparing you for this moment in time. Every relationship you've ever had is preparing you for this moment in time for your next relationship. Some relationships last 1 hour. Some relationships last 1 day. Some relationships last 2 weeks. Some relationships last 2 months. Some relationships last 2 years, and some relationships last a lifetime. Folks, they're all experiences, part of your growth. Okay? That's my way of looking at it. And watch that episode. Earthy says, I did radical honesty with a claimed healed, fearful avoidant. He seemed perfect, but slowly pulled away after 2 months with my vulnerability. I cut it off last night. Encourage me not to contact. Okay, I'm going to encourage you not to contact him if that's what you're asking. Listen, you might be diagnosing him through self-diagnosis. You know, he pulled away means that you might be misaligned with one another. I mean, there is a saying, rejection is God's protection. I mean, to that extent, every experience is a learning experience for you. So, but if you feel the need to have me tell you not to contact him, don't contact him. All right. Annika's in the house. Why would a guy totally disappear at a point where we both express that we like each other, that we're aligned, and that we want to date to get to know each other? No answer, your thoughts. Okay. Well, folks, I'm going to take this question a little different route. You know, I believe the minute two people like each other, they should spend every day with each other for a month and see if they really get along with each other. The problem is most relationships today are through our devices. It's texting, it's telephone calls. It's not doing stuff together. So to build real trust with one another. So to come back, why would a guy totally disappear after you express you love? Because like doesn't mean love. Like just means like. And like doesn't mean unhealthy attachment. It just means like, okay? And just because two people line each other, ladies, how many times have you had a guy check all the boxes, but it still wasn't right for you? Okay? This is why it's called dating. Now, the sad reality is most people aren't connecting at a heart level connection because we're so indoctrinated in, okay, ladies, you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but most women been indoctrinated in the belief that the man must climb to the highest room of the tallest tower to win your affection. So men have been conditioned to give a lot more in the early stage of dating through entertainment of each other, okay? Play, fun, entertainment. It's our job to woo you, okay? That's the way our society has been indoctrinated for a very long time. The problem is that methodology is mostly for procreation. He has to woo you to get in your pants because he wants to have sex with you, okay? That doesn't mean he wants a relationship with you. So I'm a big proponent of operating differently. That's why I'm suggesting spend every day with each other for a month and see if you really like each other. That's just a speculation I have on my part. I'm not saying it is. This isn't going to work because most people aren't willing to do it. But imagine if you did and you really got along, you have a great foundation to build upon. Vessa says, I feel that women who accept friends with benefits or situationships do themselves and all women a disservice. So long as the majority of women accepted are available sexually to men without commitment, men won't change. That's certainly, I would venture to say you're absolutely right. And yet a woman has sovereignty and agency over her own life. She's more than welcome to operate like a man. I mean, I'm not here to judge the women who do that, but they're right. The fact is men recognize that, what's the old saying? Why buy the cow if you can get the milk for free? Yeah. Women's sovereignty, the lower their standards, the easier it is for men to take advantage of that. I would agree with that. But again, if two consenting adults agree to it, there's nothing wrong with that in my mindset either. Karen says, kudos to you, Jonathan, for always being able to take criticism well. Believe me, I have the thinnest skin on the planet, folks. I don't take criticism very well, but I didn't see that as criticism. But I will tell you, I mean, I have very thin skin. It takes a lot of introspection for me to recognize that oftentimes when someone is criticizing me, they're projecting their own shit on me. But I appreciate that, Karen. Thank you so much. How about some love to the Connor Asley Scholarship Fund? There's a little dollar sign in the chat box. Our goal for the rest of the evening is $45.50. I'd appreciate some love. Cynthia's in the house. When your man is attending to the other woman, helping them out because he's a nice guy, why do I feel jealous? He moved 4 hours away to have a feel-good retirement. Well, certainly women are territorial just like men are territorial, so it's natural to feel jealous. Probably it's because not enough trust was built between them. Either you might have trust issues, Cynthia, or not enough trust has been built between the two of you. So that could be the reasons why. He moved 4 hour away to feel good, to have a feel good retirement. Well, he's entitled to have the life he wants. So I mean, I guess the question is, did you guys have conversations about it? How long were you dating each other or in a relationship together? But, you know, sovereign beings are allowed to do what they want. Now, I think the minute you engage with another human being, you have a responsibility to take into account their feelings. I believe that's part of building trust with another human being. So my guess is you guys didn't have a very solid foundation relationship. Is why, and you have to examine your choices in this relationship. Don't look at him, examine yourself, Cynthia, okay? Lisa wants to say out loud, I like big butts. It's one of the songs my ex-wife played at our wedding. Regina, why do you think anxious attachment choose avoidance? It's purely subconscious. It's a unconscious, subconscious response to our childhood traumas that make us. It's this weird thing. Cognitively, we don't understand why we do it. It's just it's in that recesses of our brain. That's the reason why. And until we recognize it and do our due diligence, can we start to make better choices going forward? Question is more than friends when he says I love you. If he doesn't say I love you, is it friends with benefits? Well, you know, I think I love you should be reserved for those couples that are engaging in a real partnership-based relationship. Okay. I think it should be people that are exploring a partnership-based relationship. That's the time to reserve the words I love you. Now, deep care for another human being can feel like love, but I think oftentimes that's like or deep care. But that's just the way I've observed it. So you have to look at that from your own, but it doesn't necessarily mean friends with benefits. Because, by the way, just because a guy has sex with you and doesn't say I love you doesn't mean that's friends with benefits. It might mean that, but it might mean that you're in a casual relationship. It might mean a hookup, or it might mean a situationship. Lisa wants to point out, true, Jonathan, few relationships go the long distance or go the distance. I mean, it just happens to be a state of just a fact. Michelle Clark is in the house. How do I stop reading into text or address a text to gain clarity without coming across too serious or needy? Okay. If you have a reaction to a text, that means you've been triggered. Now, you could have a valid reason for ever triggering, but then if you create a story around it, that's an assumption or a projection on your part. Okay. So when you get triggered, it's an opportunity to look inward and ask yourself, because here's my invitation for everyone. Rather than looking at a text that triggers you from a nefarious place, ask yourself this question. What was their good reason for sending that text? Now, if you're proficient like me and studied human behavior and understand human dynamics, you could probably read between the lines. You could probably intuitively read between the lines. But here's the thing. Intuition comes from a very quiet place inside of you. And intuition is simply binary. What's okay and what's not okay. Okay? It's binary. If you're reacting with a trigger, that means it's based on a past trauma. Okay, most likely. Okay, it's based on some sort of pain or trauma. I would examine that. Now, it's always excellent to gain clarity. I'm a little confused by what you said. Could you clarify that for me? I'm a little confused by what you said. Can you clarify that for me? Now, if that's too serious or needy, folks, my book, Chapter 1, Speak Your Truth, Do It With Kindness. Come from a place of curiosity. Chapter 9, if it's sincere and from the heart, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. If the person judges you for it, they're probably not your person. Michelle, that's my way of looking at it. Great question. Thank you so much. Lisa says, Michelle, texting is terrible. Don't analyze it. Call him or talk to him in person. Good point. And then share your feelings. Let's keep going here. Bum, 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 bum. Jade wants to say it's an inner child wound from previous trauma that makes us avoidant feel like it's an inner child wound from previous trauma that makes avoidance feel like what they always knew. Think about it. Any type of avoidance makes people anxious. It's a trauma that can be broken. Certainly we can heal from traumas. There's no doubt about it. Usually it's a childhood wound, a micro wounds that happen in childhood, but certainly adult wounds. There's not enough studies, there is not enough studies of the emotional effects for those of us in the over 45 category, the over 40 category, of how emotional trauma through repetitive relationships that don't work out. There is not enough studies on how this affects our way of being, our life as adults. I think we are swimming in a sea of dysfunctionality because very few humans do personal development, self-help, and spiritual work to actually do and therapy. I mean, I should include therapy or seeing a degreed professional certainly has its value as well. I'm a big proponent of that, but not enough human beings are doing the work. By the way, yoga and meditation doesn't count. Yoga and meditation doesn't count. Let me rewind that. It's a small piece of the puzzle. It's very difficult to heal through meditation and yoga. Anyway, that's my perception on that anyway. Stephanie, is it possible to be anxious and avoidant at the same time? I do believe that disorganized, I think some people can probably exhibit both of those feelings at the same time. I do believe that's absolutely possible. I'm not schooled enough to know this. I mean, I do have studied it and I'm aware, but I'm not a professional at this. But I think it's absolutely possible. What I invite you all to do, like I said earlier, is be the witness to your life by examining how you react to your thoughts, your emotions, and your feelings as the observer from a place of how your body is reacting, If you're not familiar with the work of something called somatic therapy, emotional release work, or holotropic breath work, let me repeat that. Somatic therapy, emotional release work, or holotropic breath work. It's all designed to release all of our stored up energy from our traumas that are residing in our bodies. And because of that, many human beings are suffering from a disease perspective, from an emotional perspective. I mean, the fact is dating triggers what I believe is the #1 emotional health wound out there is I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not likable. And when I mean dating in relationships, okay? So I'm inviting everyone to do that deeper work so they can operate from a place of sovereignty going forward. By the way, a couple people are asking me, what are you drinking? This just happens to be lemonade is all that is. So I I don't drink alcohol when I do these videos, okay? Um, so anyway, that's that. Okay, I want to share, since we, Sherry Fleming says, you're right about meditation and yoga. I was explaining this to an avoidant man earlier. He had a deer in the headlights look in his face when I recommended therapy, was more open to PD. What is PD? Okay. Jess says, question, what do you think about Psych Pack? Orion says regarding relationships. Orion Taraban, from what I understand, he's a therapist that points out what he believes are obvious truths out in the dating marketplace. Particularly from what I understand, he emphasizes this something known as the sexual marketplace. Basically, a woman's value based on her sexual appeal is my Cliff Note version of interpreting that. I'm not a fan of his conversation because all he do is pointing out all of the unhealthy behaviors of human beings. And he's not, from what I understand, he's not offering, and I could be wrong, he's not offering solutions. He's also talking to a younger demographic. He's hitting on the zeitgeist and problems that people are faced in the dating marketplace. And he's not offering any really healthy solutions for real healthy couples. So I'm a little disappointed that he's a doctor, and I don't believe, and I could be mistaken, he's not offering healthy solutions to, he's just pointing out what he believes is a problem, but I don't believe it's indicative of the entire problem in our human pair bonding issues, okay? And certainly he doesn't address the over 45 in the divorce category that I'm addressed in. I'm more focused on midlife and encouraging people to stand up in their sovereignty, both men and women alike. And I'm not a big fan of the red pill community because it offers a patriarchal, misogynist point of view in my mind, that a woman's value, man makes all the money and he pays the bills, and a woman is responsible for cleaning the house and having sex. It's a very patriarchal, traditional approach, and I'm not a fan of that, particularly for those of us who are in midlife. So that's my interpretation of that. And if ever makes your way to Orion, you heard that, that's just my perception of you. Doesn't make my perception right. It's just the way I perceived you in the few videos that I've watched. And certainly I'd be open to having a conversation with you if you're interested. By the way, since you brought up Orion, folks, I need your help. I would like to be a guest on a podcast on YouTube called Soft White Underbelly. Soft White Underbelly. Dr. Orion Taraban was on that. And I'd like to give my rebuttal to the conversation out there. So if anyone could write, please, I think it's info@softwhiteunderbelly.com. If you could say, please interview Jonathan Asley and include my YouTube channel, I would appreciate all of your help to help me get to be a guest on Soft White Underbelly YouTube. Please, if everybody wrote them, 100 or 200 of you wrote them, hopefully they'd reach out to me and I'd get to do an interview. And I think you would love that interview because I think I could hit more people, and I'd really appreciate that. So it's called Soft White Underbelly. I want to be a guest on that podcast, okay? So I want to share with everybody a post I had on Facebook today. Allow me to share this with you all because something interesting happened to me recently in some communication with women. So I want to read this to you. Over the years, I've been accused of being intense from a dating perspective because I prefer to cut through the nonsensical chit chat and go straight to compatibility questions and, more importantly, emotional IQ questions to determine alignment. Given that most of the time these days we meet total strangers in the dating marketplace, the traditional approach of chemistry equals relationship success is wrong. This has been proven mostly ineffective for long-term happiness, and yet there are exceptions to the rule. While chemistry is important, alignment on values, visions, lifestyle, and emotional maturity play much more of a role in said happiness. There is this traditional expectation it's a man's job to romance or entertain a woman to develop attraction. And while that certainly works for getting laid, this unconscious approach yields terrible long-term results when two misaligned people find themselves attached. Where did I, wait, I just lost my, when two and let's not kid ourselves. Women love being romanced and entertained because it gives them a sense of being valued, albeit a false sense of value. My approach reflects what I preach professionally. Know thyself and know what you want and need from a relationship, which I hope I do now. If being direct is intense, I see it as a grown-up approach, and I seek someone who can meet me from an EQ and IQ perspective. And if that's too much for someone, then I'm not their guy. Okay? Why I share this with you is I had something fascinating happen to me today. So 2 months ago, I had a woman reach out to me on a dating app, and I responded with a rather in-depth curiosity question, and she disappeared. Okay, too much for her. All right, too much for her. I just was very clear on what I want, and I offered her to share with me what she wanted, and that was too much for her. Well, I got a text message from her today. This is through the dating app. I went back and thought about what you said, and I realized you're a man who's intentional and serious. I am so not used to intentional and serious men. I thought that was way too intense for me. So we began a dialogue. And by the way, my intuition knew she was misaligned with me. I had a gut feeling in our first communication, she was misaligned with me. So I went on to ask more of my questions, and sure enough, we're not a match for one another. My intuition was right. But what was fascinating was at first she thought my direct questions, which wasn't romantic, which felt like an interview, which felt intense. But Jonathan, I'm just supposed to sit in my feminine energy. Just kidding. But she realized grown-up conversations is what we fucking need in the dating marketplace, is to have grown-up conversations, is to be vulnerable, authentic, and transparent, to lay your cards on, to use radical honesty and laying your cards on the table and the rules of engagement right early on so you can save time. I have more of these conversations because you know what? I don't want to say I'm testing someone. I just want someone to meet me where I'm at. But if that feels like a test, then we should be fucking testing everybody, because it's exhausting getting ready for a date, going through the process, only to find you're misaligned a couple dates later. So anyway, just wanted to share that. And Brown Canetta says, yippee, Jonathan. JA is being transparent. I love it when he is so genuine. Here's the thing, folks. Being vulnerable is rather easy to me. I think for most people, and by the way, and to be public, oh my God, I've had so many of you judge me based on my actions on my past relationships, or even all the different things I share. I've been judged, I've been criticized. But you see, I believe that true courage lies in the capacity to be vulnerable, authentic, and transparent. I think I'm one of the most courageous men in the marketplace, but you're such a simp, Jonathan. You're too feminine. I just laugh when people say that, because it's not a masculine or feminine thing. It's just, I think, being a human thing. In fact, I think it takes more courage to be vulnerable publicly than maybe, I mean, not to suggest going to war, because you could truly die, but I think it takes more courage to do that than a lot of other things in life. And as Roller Girl said, less red tape to go through to ask for what you want. Yeah, that's how I feel. Let's stop playing this game. And ladies, stop being expected to be romanced. Okay? I'm sorry. I have a hard on for that. Please, wrong terminology. I have a bug up my ass about that. I don't believe it's my job to entertain and romance you. It's not my job. It's both our jobs to do that for each other. But you know what our real job is? To get to know each other at a heart-centered level. It's not about, like when I hear women, if he doesn't wine and dine me, by the way, I had one dating coach say, if a guy doesn't pay for your valet, don't ever accept a second date from him. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. We already have so many fucking rules we deal with that you throw in that bullshit rule and you think that's healthy advice? It's my judgment, folks. I disagree with this person. Anyway, those are just some of my rough thoughts. Lexi says there's nothing wrong with what men want versus what women want. Fewer men than women want marriage on long term. There is an imbalance of what each sex wants as their priority. Actually, what's interesting is as women age, they're less likely to want to get married because they don't want to be a nurse or purse to someone, Lexi. So just be aware of that as well. Catherine says, as I mentioned earlier, we all have our preferences on how we get to know someone and the pace. What works for one may and may not work for another. I fully agree. We all have our preferences. Anyone doing what JA does is very brave. This is not easy. Make no mistake. Thank you so much. Renee says, bullshit rule. Not paying for ballet class. Wait, ballet class on a first date. Wait, bullshit rule, not pay. By the way, I heard a coach say, if the guy doesn't offer to pay your babysitter, don't accept the date from him. I'm like, why is that his responsibility? Like that was a bullshit in my mind. Like, this is the bullshit advice. And you wonder why it's fucked up out there. By the way, I don't consider my suggestions I'm not calling them advice. They're merely perspectives. You take out of it what you think works for you is the way I observe all of this, okay? By the way, can we have some donations to the Connor Asley Scholarship Fund before we wrap up today? You know, I was looking at this photograph and I realized, you know how hard it is that I can take pictures with my other son, Colin, as he ages, and Connor will forever remain 19 years old. And all of the photographs I have are the last photographs of him. In other words, the only photographs of him. Do you realize how hard that is to not be able to see your child grow up and not to have photographs of him? Do you have any idea how painful that is? It breaks my heart. And so I'm looking at a picture right there where he was 5 or maybe 10 years old, and I can't tell. It's so hard to realize that you won't have any new pictures of him. And I get to take new pictures with my son. I get to, and I'm grateful for that as well. All right, just wanted to share that, how I was feeling in the moment. Inya says, if you spend so much money on beauty treatments for the date, it's nice if he pays for the dinner. See, now that's a transaction. If I have to do, there's a tit for tat for that. By the way, when you're, okay, here's my argument. I hate this fucking, Inya, I'm sorry, you're not going to like this. When you go out with your girlfriends and you get all dialed up, do you make them pay for it? Because if you make your girlfriend pay for it, okay, then that's the way you operate. But if you go out with your girlfriends, you get all dialed up, you get dressed up to go out, and you expect someone to pay for it, you took away their agency for generosity by creating an expectation. That's how I feel about that, folks. This argument is the one I can't stand this argument as being a valid reason why a man should pay, because you owe it because I spent. Well, then don't get so dressed up. By the way, for a first date, you shouldn't. By the way, if you had to spend more than $10, that's on you, okay? I want to thank Diane for the $10 super sticker. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Also, I want to thank Stephanie for the $10 super sticker. That means our goal for the rest of the evening is $25. By the way, if anyone is brave enough to join the hot seat and take some love from me, some tough love, I'd appreciate it. I know you think this is not tit for tat, but yes, it is. You have an expectation. I did something and you have to do something in return. I hope that guy takes you out to McDonald's. Stephanie says, my dad died at 26 in a car crash, so my grandpa probably took it hard. Yeah, he was young. Sorry that you lost your father. You were probably a baby when it happened, or a young child, and then it happened. Roller Girl just gave us a $2 super sticker. Thank you for the love. I can't wait to donate some money. Renee wants to tell Enya, well, then don't get dressed up. Again, if you have to spend, listen, if a guy spends $20 to get ready for a date, that you don't need to spend any more than $20 to get ready for a date. I don't know. This is just how I feel. Hey, Debbie Mueller, thank you so much. My ex never supported his kids, so why do I expect the date to cover my babysitter? Well, I'm sorry that your ex was not a participant in his children's life. That's a sad thing. All right, Trista's in the house. Do you recommend we become friends with men first before going on a date with them to avoid all the awkwardness? You know what? So many of you know I was in a significant relationship that ended a year ago, and we met collectively 3 years ago now. And we developed a little bit of a friendship before we ever met. And our date wasn't a date. It was just two people, friends meeting, and it turned into a date. In fact, I the other night, I had a date with a woman who I met through a dating app. We're not a fit because of logistics, but we ended up meeting for a drink. And we met for a drink and we had a bite to eat and we had a very lovely time. We met as friends, but she kind of said, this feels like a date. You know, my point is when you build a bit of familiarity with someone without any pressure or expectation of a date, you can actually have a better time with someone when you build a little bit of familiarity with someone. So anyway, by the way, she lives in Arizona and she's not only GU, but her lifestyle isn't compatible with mine. Stephanie says, I love dinner at Long John Silver's. Way to go. Annika gave us a $5 super sticker. Thank you so much. Zen says, I'm always radically honest, open, and vulnerable. I agree that you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. You don't have to be a purse. The man will tell you how he feels if he feels safe. I would agree. You don't have to be a purse. That part of your post, I don't understand. How much more do we need to get to $50? I believe $10 more to get to $50, but the minute we get to 50, I'm going to shoot for 100. Okay. But $10 more. Debbie, I dare you to get on the hot seat. Are you brave enough? Debbie, I appreciate, by the way, Debbie, Annika, many of you who are regulars, I can't begin to thank you how much I appreciate all the love, the care, the kindness. You are loyal. But I also believe that I hope that you're gaining value every time I record a video. And that's my hope for all of you. Hey, folks, is this sinking in? Is this resonating? Why is it dangerous to be with an avoidant man? Because oftentimes what you seek most won't be fulfilled. And why will it piss you off? Because when the relationship ends, the pain and suffering is how you grow. And so I know that's not make you happy that I tell you this, but it is through the pain and the suffering that we anxious people oftentimes grow beyond our insecure attachment style into a more secure attachment way. And I want to give Natty's props for the $10 super sticker. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Zen says, I hate when people expect this money spending thing. I let them do as they will and high expectations. Again, when a person expects something from me, you took away my agency for generosity. That's just my feeling about that. When you expect a man to pay for a date, you took away his agency for generosity. Just play with that for a little bit. Okay? Hey, is this sinking? I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in these videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos as well. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery, where you can have direct access to me on a regular basis. You can get all the books I recommend. Follow me on Instagram and get my dating vows listed below. All right, I'm going to wrap up this dinner. I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Barrick of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love, if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow. Give it or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. I want to thank Wanda and Debbie and Sherry and Drew Morris and Bridge and Annika and everybody who donated, and Natty's and Holly Z and ZoCal friend and Janet and Joe Daisy and Inya. Big hugs to you. Bridget, Bridge IT, Jade, Zen, I think I covered. And if I missed you, big hugs and appreciation to you all. Thanks for all the love. Wishing you a super duper wonderful, fantastic